Hey there, welcome back to the channel. I'm just about to dive into the second part of this project, taking that article we wrote with Copilot in Microsoft Word and using that as our input to PowerPoint to create the slide deck that I need for this club presentation. Now, if you didn't catch the first part, you'll want to pause here and watch that video first. It's only 5 or 6 minutes long. It's where I create the document that we're about to use in PowerPoint. I'll leave a link to that video in the description down below. Also, stick around to the end to learn about how Copilot could break the designer and what you need to do about it if it happens to you. Hi, I'm Ken Ross, and in this video we'll explore leveraging the power of Copilot in Microsoft PowerPoint. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. Here I've opened up Microsoft PowerPoint to a blank presentation, and I've opened up the Copilot panel by clicking on the Copilot icon in the top right corner of the ribbon bar, next to the designer icon. Don't be concerned if your designer or Copilot icons look different from mine. Different editions and versions of Office might have some icon differences. Copilot in PowerPoint can be used to ask general questions like most Copilots, but the real power comes from a set of specific prompts that instruct it to manipulate the deck or the current slide in a variety of ways. With these prompts, you can create a whole slide deck, add new slides or images, and even reorganize your slides into sections. You can also analyze existing decks, generating summaries or suggested improvements, and calling out slides of particular importance. When using prompts in PowerPoint, it works best when you get the wording just right. Asking Copilot, add an image of an antique camera, will add an appropriate image to the current slide, whereas insert an image of, or even add a picture of, might not be interpreted correctly. Fortunately, we don't have to memorize the exact flick and swish of every prompt. PowerPoint has made it easy by providing prompts on a menu right inside the prompt input box. The prompts are nicely organized under Create, Understand, Edit, and Ask. Under Create, we have 2 prompts for creating entire slide decks. One is based on supplying a file name, and the other is based on supplying a description. The second option, Create a Presentation About, just requires that you follow the prompt with a detailed description of what you want in your slide deck. Be as descriptive as possible, including the length of the desired presentation, the target audience, and of course the content you want covered. Be aware that this prompt can only go up to 2,000 characters in length, so don't plan on providing a massive quantity there. Keep it concise, even down to just an outline. When it comes to generating a deck from a larger set of text, like our Rules of Composition document, we need to use the Create a Presentation from a File prompt. With this prompt, you need to supply the path to a document that's in a shared cloud environment like OneDrive or SharePoint. After typing in or selecting the prompt from the menu, it will sometimes display a list of your recently updated files, and you can just select it. However, I find that the most consistent way to use this prompt is to right-click on my document in the Windows Explorer and select Share from the menu. Then from the subsequent dialog, I can click on Copy, and then click on Copy again to put the URL into the clipboard. You can also get a link to a file in a folder in SharePoint, and that'll work exactly the same way. Once you have the file path in your clipboard, just select the Create a Presentation from a File prompt, paste in the copied URL, and execute the prompt by clicking on the little send icon in the chat box. Generating the deck from a file like this goes remarkably fast, but can still take a couple of minutes, depending on how large your source document is. Our Rules of Composition document is only 3 pages long. That will still translate into nearly 24 slides in the finished deck. While that's running, let's review some of the other PowerPoint prompts that might come in handy when we finish up our presentation. We've already talked about 2 of the Create Presentation prompts under the Create category, but there's a third prompt there that might come in really handy, and that's Add a Slide About, where it will insert a new slide after our currently selected slide with content based on the description that you provide after the prompt, like add a slide about the use of depth of field as a composition tool. Under the Understand category, we have 4 prompts that in general are going to be useful to help you understand a deck that you've received from somebody else. The Summarize This Presentation prompt gives you a bullet list of the main ideas from the presentation. The Are there any dates or deadlines in? Will require you to include a reference to the deck, so be sure to add presentation after the prompt, or it might not work. The Show Action Items will quickly scan the current deck for any follow-up items, and Show Key Slides in this deck will try to identify specific slides of special importance. Under Edit, we just have two prompts, and they can both be very useful when creating new presentations. Add an image of takes a description for the image and looks through PowerPoint's stock image library to find a reasonable match, and then adds that to the current slide. The other Edit prompt, Organize this presentation, analyzes the deck to identify potential section topics, creates those sections, and then groups the slides under those sections. Under the Ask category, the How Can Copilot Help just provides some generic information on how to use Copilot in PowerPoint. But the second prompt, Give me specific examples from the presentation on how I can improve it. It's a mouthful. That one can actually be quite useful because it gives you a way to ask Copilot how to further fine-tune the presentation for a particular audience or market. I found the resulting suggestion to be quite useful. And though they won't apply them for you automatically, it gives you a great starting point to go and make some manual edits. It looks like our deck creation has completed. Since we started from a blank presentation with no initial theme selected, Copilot has decided on its own what sort of style to apply. This usually looks pretty good, but the results can be a bit random. Generating the same presentation from the same document multiple times will probably result in different looking presentations. If you want to have more control over the style, the easiest way to do that is to either start with a blank presentation and then select a theme from the Design tab before using Copilot. Or, as my friend Alessandra discovered, you can open up an existing deck that has the style you'd like to adopt. It's a great option if you have a pre-made corporate template deck or just a reference deck to help drive consistency. When you tell Copilot to create the presentation from an existing deck, it will ask you to confirm that you'd like to first delete all of the existing slides. You do want to delete the existing slides, but be careful here. If that deck you opened is set to autosave, deleting those slides will wipe out that deck in a way you probably don't want or expect. While you could try to remember to turn off the autosave first, I find the best approach is to either make a copy of that file before ever opening it up and then use that copy. Or if that's not practical, then do a save as with that new file as soon as you open it before you ever start using Copilot. So now let's see how we can use a couple of those other Copilot prompts to finish up this deck. I noticed that the slide talking about leading lines is a little plain and could probably benefit from having an image added. Let's select this slide and then use the Add an Image of prompt to look for an image related to this subject. I think that image will work, but I'm not sold on the placement. Let's use Designer to suggest some alternative layouts for this slide. Since this is our first time using Designer after having Copilot create the deck, there's something I want to point out that you might encounter if you're using an Enterprise M365 license. Out of an abundance of caution, and because Copilot doesn't really know what's confidential and what isn't, when using an Enterprise M365 license on PowerPoint, Copilot may automatically set the sensitivity rating of your generated presentation to confidential. When that happens, it can result in Designer being disabled so that confidential information can't accidentally be sent to the cloud for Designer work. If you know that the content of your deck is not confidential, you can easily click on the sensitivity label and change it to a more appropriate value. And anything that's non-confidential should unlock Designer for you. Now, specific corporate policies could impact the details of those behaviors. If you're using a non-enterprise license of M365, you likely won't see any mention of sensitivity and won't run into this problem. Now, with our Designer available, we'll have it offer up some suggestions to improve this page and select one of those options before moving on. The last thing I'd like to do here is add a mention of the role of depth of field in helping to isolate subjects and remove background distractions. Let's use the Add a Slide About prompt to add a new slide for that topic after the leading line slide. Did you notice the presenter notes? Many slides that Copilot creates will include them automatically to give you more detailed talking points on the slide subject. There, I think that does it. I might go through and tweak a few words and phrases here and there, but using Copilot in PowerPoint has saved me a ton of time creating this presentation deck, and it aligns perfectly with the article that Copilot in Word had helped me create earlier. Using this same technique, you could use Copilot in PowerPoint to create customer presentations based on contract documents, educational presentations based on blogs or course documents, almost anything that you're starting with a written document and have some need to present that information in a professional and dynamic way. Even if you're unsure of whether the deck is needed, having the ability to create one so quickly means that you could have one created just on standby without having to worry about putting in all those extra hours to create a deck that you may never actually use. What are some of the ways that you can think of to use Copilot in PowerPoint in your work or personal life? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions about what I've shown you here, please leave those in the comments and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them. If there's any other topics you'd like me to cover related to M365 and Copilot, let me know in the comments down below. Heck, just leave your favorite emoji in the comments. Any engagement helps drive visibility, so thank you. Finally, since you've made it this far, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos.